So, hello everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's good to see you all here. Today I'll talk about creating serverless CMS from scratch. And oops. Wait. Yep. First of all, let me introduce myself and my company. My name is Sota Ohara from Tokyo, Japan. And I'm a tech lead and front-end engineer at Mercari. The account name is Sota on Twitter and GitHub and other social services. And about Mercari, is there any person who has ever had Mercari before? Yeah, I know. I think you all guys don't know about Mercari since we only provide the service in Japan and US. So let me introduce about our service. We provide a Mercari marketplace, which is kind of C2C free market service. Actually, I have no idea there is similar service in Kyiv, but in the US, there is a Craigslist or OfferUp as similar service in the US. To put it simply, individuals can easy to sell and buy used items. So you can sell unnecessary stuff at home and also buy a listed item as well on our service. The page on the left is a list page showing items that we can purchase. And the page on the right is detailed page of the item. We provide kind of this service on native app, which is Android and iOS, and also web application. And about the company, we established in 2013. It's about 6 years ago, and offices are located in Japan and the US. Tokyo, Sendai, Fukuoka in Japan, and Palo Alto, Portland, Boston in the US. And we are more than 1,800 people in whole the company. And this slide says the numbers of GMV net sales in a year, and MAU, which is a monthly active user in Japan. But the unit of GMV and net sales are Japanese yen, so 530 billion yen. GMV here is about 4.5 billion euros, and which is more than 120 billion hryvnia, I think. And actually, we already got listed in Tokyo, but we are kind of unicorn company before listed. And actually, we found in Japan, but we are kind of global company. Around 20% in the whole company and around 40% in engineering division came from out of Japan. And in our team, meetings are basically conducted in English. I think it's very rare case, especially for a Japanese company. And due to the characteristic of our service, we frequently create a landing page. We call it campaign page. It's kind of offering the coupon like 5% off or 500 yen cashback, something like that. Anyway, we frequently create it for attracting users. And I think it's very Japanese, so I'll introduce it. So the very left one, this campaign provides 5% off ticket for customer. There's a deadline and kind of details and kind of apply button for this campaign on this page. And the middle one, this campaign provides 500 yen points if customer use a new feature, which is kind of new way to listing the item on the app. So this campaign purpose is kind of spread awareness of the new feature and increase the listing numbers. The yellow button is participate button, which is same as the first campaign I mentioned. And the red button is using new feature button. This campaign is something like this. And the very right one, this is a kind of commission fee campaign. Actually, we have a 10% commission fee for every transaction in our app, but it will be free while this campaign is running. So campaign page, we call it something like this. We keep to create kind of these pages for users. And these campaigns are referred by the listing page of our app. There's a banner on the top of listing page, and when user tap this banner, user will send to those campaign pages. This is a very easy explanation for our campaign page. So move next. Let's start to talk about the CMS. This is a flow before building the CMS. PM, which is product manager, discuss and decide the spec, target, rough UI for a campaign, and the designer creates the UI for that campaign. I think this is a common way, nothing special here. But after designer created a UI, PM check it and starts the coding by designer. It's kind of unusual, I think, but we did it. And if the spec required JavaScript code, front-end engineer assigned it to write a jQuery, since we use a jQuery for these pages. And where to pay attention is designer needs to write pug instead of normal HTML, which means designer needs to acquire the knowledge of pug, since many designers don't have to pug experience. And it's also will be restriction on who is able to create campaign page as well, since designer needs the knowledge of pug. And after designer wrote our code, front-end engineer needs to review those codes. After review is done, we ask the QA to make sure whether the page works correctly or not. And after QA is done, we finally can release to publish it. It's kind of a long trip. The time of this trip takes about more than 10 days for each campaign normally, which means we can only run 1 or 2 campaigns in a month at most. And it's kind of generally speaking, but it's also hard to take time for this task, since we also having other tasks like creating other tools or features, and multitask is reducing productivity, I think. So as a summary, there are 5 big issues before build the CMS, I think. Let's take a look one by one. The first one, designer need to write a code, which means designer need to acquire knowledge about language, such as Pug and CSS. Almost all designers didn't know the Pug, as I said. Then they need to acquire it after joining our company. And it also restriction to who be able to create a campaign page. And also, front-end engineer take a time to review those codes wrote by designer. It's kind of enjoyable work. And the next one, sometimes front-end engineer have to write a code, which is a jQuery for a campaign. As you know, all of front engineers don't want to write legacy jQuery code anymore. And the last one, the first one is kind of fact, so the last one, if PM or someone wants to change the content, even one word, we need to repeat this process, which is update code, review it, QA, and release it. Many people have to participate in it, and it takes a long time since they have another task, so it's hard to start it right away. So as a conclusion for before building, it's pretty hard to operate many campaigns using this schema. Then we decided to create CMS for managing campaign pages. But why we created it from scratch without CMS in OSS? Before starting to talk about it, I'd like to talk about what we want to create. These are campaign pages listed before build CMS, which means existed campaigns created by Pug and jQuery. We realized they almost use same component for campaigns. I think also you can find the same design, so the campaigns, which means the design of title, button, Q&A, almost same for these campaigns. And we discussed with designer and PM and decided to create some components. And designer just need to combine the components to create new feature, new campaign page. In this case, there's an image, title, button, text, link text, Q&A. So we create this component and provide it in the CMS. So what the feature we will provide in the CMS is, there are 2 pages. One is the listing page, the other is editor page. On listing page, user can see all campaign pages, which includes publish and even work in progress one. And on editor page, user can create pages with just combine provided components provided by us front-end engineer. But of course, there's a pros and cons. Pros, we can reduce the time needed to create page. This is the most important purpose of this tool. And the second one, designers don't need to require to have programming skills such as Pug, CSS, and so on. So we can remove restrictions. And the last one, update contents is completed by only PM or designer. They can just change it on CMS. And about cons, we thought there's one cons, which is we keep to implement a component if the campaign page requires a component which isn't provided. For example, PM wants to use new UI or new components to fit the market. We need to implement that component. But it will be decreasing since the kind of provided components will be widely. So the options that can choose so the options they can choose become more and more. So it won't be a big issue for us, and we decided to create CMS. So let's go back to the original topic. The reason why we created CMS from scratch is, actually we tried to use many CMS frameworks, but all CMS which we tried isn't support what we achieve, such as select component and select and combine components as they like. Then we decided to create it ourselves. So move to the next topic, how we created the CMS. When we're creating a CMS, there are many things that we need to think about. Security, access control, authorization, preview features, change history, track changes, SSR, and so on. There are many things like this. Then we decided to list it as MVP, which is a minimum viable product. What we created for fast release is create enough components for creating an existing page and create staging environment, which is able to publish and unpublish as well. And access restrictions only from company Wi-Fi. We should implement more features in the future, but we decided only these features for fast release. And actually, this list is a storage kit for agile process. And next, I'll talk about architecture of CMS. This is the whole architecture of CMS and campaign page. On CMS, when user access to the CMS, get HTML and JS file to build CMS from Amazon S3. And Cloud Function get data from storage and return it to CMS. And when custom access to the campaign page, just get HTML, CSS, JavaScript from cloud storage and render it. And this is the actual flow when accessing to campaign page. Get HTML file without contents, which means without SSR first. And HTML requests base JS file, and that JS file requests JSON file to cloud storage. The JSON file includes the campaign information, that is, which components should display on that page. And get JS component file, which we will show dynamically. Since it's too large if we install all components code once. And I'd like to mention about updating the data flow as well. When user, product manager, clicks the Save as Draft button, we will call method in Cloud Functions and save campaign data to cloud storage in staging environment. And we can check the campaign page in staging environment. And this is a flow when we click the publish button on CMS. I think you guys feel weird by this flow. We will call Cloud Functions method and fire Cloud Storage API, which copy data from staging cloud storage to production cloud storage. Which means we cannot push the data to production environment directly from CMS, just put the data from staging. The reason why we selected this style is, since we have to check the content by QA before publish, the content should pass the staging environment before put into publish one. So when product manager wants the update page, which is already published, they have to save a draft first and do a QA in staging. After passing QA environment, they can push to production environment as well. And there's also one more advantage. Like when product manager wants to unpublish campaign page, what we need to do is just delete the data from production environment. We don't need to think about the synchronization between staging and production. And I think you recognize that weird things these are Amazon and Google on this slide. First of all, our company mainly uses Google Cloud Platform. Then if we think logically, our platform will be GCS. But we are also having environment internal GitHub pages, which is easy to deploy the static files and having restrictions by internal IP address. The environment served by Amazon S3. As I said, we wanted to create CMS MVP. We decided to use that environment even we could not do authorization. Then we used both of these first. And I think you guys have one more question. It's like, do you really need a Cloud Function here? For now, it's just a proxy, just a proxy. Get requests from CMS and create requests for each cloud storage. But it's better to use it, even in this case, if we think about after release. As I said, we wanted to create it as an MVP, so we also have to think about after release this towards MVP. After MVP, we have to install the authorization control. Due to the characteristic of this CMS, we have to install authorization to be able to create, update, delete, or publish as well. And we will install it. We need to add authentication service and manage authorization data. Then we will use server GAE and the GAE handle to all of gathering data and posting data. Make sure the authentication, get data from authorization database, get campaign data from cloud storage, and post the campaign data as well. And in this scenario, which means if we use Cloud Function, when we want to introduce GAE, we don't need to change CMS code without updating path of endpoint. So we can only focus on GAE and our stuffs. I thought it's better even we need to care about CMS code base. Then we decided to use Cloud Functions for fast release like this architecture. And next, I'd like to mention about the code base. As I talked before, the full data flow is like this. I think you can realize there are two JavaScript code. One is for CMS, and the other is for the campaign page. Left on this slide and right on this slide. Then we create two repositories for each code base, CMS and campaign creation tool. The responsibility of CMS repository is around the CMS, which means display the CMS, get data from cloud storage, and post data to cloud storage. So this CMS repository includes the code running the Cloud Function. And responsibility of creation to repository is display campaign page with gathering getting data from cloud storage. Let's see the stacks using for this tool. Actually, we use almost same stacks for both services, like a front-end code by React and TypeScript, and styled component for styling, and build by Webpack, and put bundle files to S3. And we write cloud functions by Node.js. And we also use Jest for testing, which is created by Facebook, and it's easy to write tests for React. And finally, I talked about actual CMS what we created. I'd like to do a demo here. This is a local environment, and here is a published campaign here, and this is unpublished campaign here. And we can create new campaign by here, kind of test for JS Fest. And here it will be a URL. And we can, oops. Oh. Test and test and this is the editor page, and this is a preview area, and this is a editable area. And we can add new component from here, kind of static image, and this component will be shown. And we can select the image, it will be here. And also we can add the kind of title, JS.Kyiv. We can change the color, kind of yellow, red, and change the font size, and add the padding. Yeah, something like this. Text, details. And if there's some buttons on left side, and we can add new bevel in the component like this, and also we can remove. And we can save as drafts here. And it will be saved on the S3, cloud storage. And we can check it in a QA environment. Actually, we only provide for the smartphone, so the size of the device is just this here. And this is what we created about the CMS. Yep. Just self-explanation. And after launch this CMS, we have created some campaign pages using with this tool and got feedback from product managers and designers. They said it's pretty good and easy to create pages. Then we decided to keep updating this tool with high priority. And as I said before, next step will be we have to install authentication and the access control feature into this CMS. Actually, in the demo, there's already authentication because we already started to do it. And this box shows the stuff what we wanted to replace. And we decided to use Auth0 for authentication. It makes us easier to create authentication and authorization service. Currently, we are working on this re-architect and mostly finished this work. And actually, I have not so many talks about this architecture. The whole data flow is the same as before one. Just use GAE instead of Cloud Function. If I mention about stacks, we use Express for GAE. And for SSR, we need to run creation tool code in the GAE server to create static HTML. When user save contents on CMS, the creation tool code will be fired and create static HTML file. And the HTML file will be put into cloud storage. We are currently working on this architecture, but we'll launch this end of this year at least. And in the end, I'd like to talk about the roadmap of this CMS. This is under planning, but kind of full feature architecture. What we want to do is provide a segmented content for each user by automatically. Activity logger, here is kind of SDK aimed in our native app and gathering user activity logs. And these are microservices. And automation services is an interface for client side. It's kind of BFF, backend for front end. We are using microservice architecture throughout the company. Then the server side will be microservices architecture like this. Activity logger sends logs to conversion kicker and store data in database. And conversion kicker fires some methods when user do something like register as customer or list an item or buy stuff. Segmentation services has information about which users are in which segments and provide optimized data for each users by using with machine learning. So server-side knows which users are in which status and use machine learning to display optimized information for the user with that status. So what we want to do here is show personally optimized data for each users. This is just big and rough picture, but we are going to implement like this service and already started implementation on server side. And conclusion. As a conclusion, first we build the CMS step by step, which means we launched it as MVP first and replaced Cloud Function with GAE for new feature after released. Next one, I believe the CMS tool is useful for our company that create campaign page very easy. We just started this service around 3 months ago, but in previous months, 5 campaign pages are created by this tool in a month. And also, we have a big picture in next few quarters. Yeah, that's all. Thank you for coming.